Hello, Mishpocha, it's Courtney, America's Jewish mother. Welcome back to my channel. It's Friday, so it's time for Friday Reads, and wow, I finished a lot of stuff this week. So I finished, as of this morning, 5 books in the past week, and pretty proud of myself because 3 of those were continuing reads that I finished pretty early on since my last Friday Reads video. But 2 of them were books that I actually started and finished within the past week. So yeah, I'm killing it here. So I finished 5 books. I'm currently reading 3 books. Let's go. So one book that I finished, and this book I just finished this morning, is 3 Dreams in the Key of G by Booktube's own Marc Nash. And I'm not going to rate this book because Marc is a fellow booktuber and I am friendly with him, and so I feel weird about rating it, and I feel like I can't objectively rate it, so I'm not going to try to do that. I will give you my thoughts about it though. So I enjoyed this overall. I think this is not going to be a book for everybody. I think if you like linguistically playful experimental fiction, things like that, you would probably like this book. It has 3 alternating narrators, all of whom are named Jean in one way or another. There is Jean Ohm, J-E-A-N, Jean Ohm, a mother who lives in Northern Ireland and is taking care of her 2 daughters, and it's sort of sometime toward the end of the Troubles, and there's a lot of musing in her part of the narrative about parenthood, and what we want for our children, and whether or not it's possible to achieve that, or whether it's possible to kind of reproduce one's own self through one's children, and whether it's possible to avoid with one's children the same mistakes that one has made oneself. Then there's also the narrative of Jean Ohm, J-E-A-N, Jean Ohm, who lives in Florida. She's an older woman. She runs a feminist organization that takes care of or takes in abused women. And then at some point you start wondering if she's running a cult because she starts talking about how the FBI is after her. And then at some point she reveals some information that leads you to wonder whether she has actually murdered her husband or not. So she's sort of publishing her manifesto on the internet, and in a lot of ways, Jean Ohm in Florida character reminded me of Valerie Solanas and the SCUM Manifesto, in that she definitely has some radical ideas, but like every so often I would find myself thinking, I mean, she's not wrong though. So that probably says more about me than anything else, but there you have it. And then the third narrator is the human genome itself. And I actually found the human genome itself the most interesting of the 3 characters, because there's a lot of thinking about how we give meaning to things that, like, I mean, like, it's the human genome, right? Like, the only meaning it can have is whatever meaning we actually ascribe to it. And so all 3 of the narratives deal with repetition, replication, and reproduction in various ways. And there's a lot of, like I said, linguistic playfulness in this book. For example, in one of the parts of the narrative that's from Jean, the mother in Ulster, she writes, "The daily grind of the weekly shopping, or the weekly grind of the daily shopping, or perhaps the daily grind of the weekly, W-E-A-K-L-Y, shopping." But you get the general drift, right? So it's stuff like that. There are puns, there are sort of reorganizations or repetitions of words, and use of them in multiple ways and meanings. There are inventions of words. One that particularly stuck out to me was Evaginate, which I thought was a great word. There's also, like I said, some sort of more experimental style writing, especially the human genome itself. So this is one section from the human genome, and sometimes it will split off into multiple parts. And then, like I said, there's a lot of focus overall in this book on replication and repetition. And in fact, one thing that gets said in here by the mother from Ulster, who kind of, I think, is like at the heart of the book. No pun really intended, because her sections are symbolized by hearts, but I feel like she gets the most time in the narrative, and she's also sort of kind of at the center of the narrative, even though there are these other two characters as well. So at some point toward the end, the Ulster mother says, "The human default is always set to reproduction. Survival and reproduction, survival as reproduction." And to me, that kind of sums up among the sort of main themes that Marc is exploring in this book. And yeah, I liked it. I enjoyed it overall. But again, I think it's not going to be a book for everybody. If you like experimental fiction, if you like sort of linguistic playfulness, you would probably like this book. So again, not going to rate this, but I did enjoy it overall, and I would recommend it if you like that kind of fiction. So yeah. The other book that I finished another book this week that I'm also not going to rate, but for different reasons. So this was Pirkei Avot, or Chapters of the Fathers. This is a Jewish religious text, and I feel unable to rate this because it is a Jewish religious text, and I feel like it's almost nonsensical to me to rate it. It's like, how many stars would you give the Bible? Like, what? It's like a bizarre question. So I feel like I can't rate this either. I did feel like I got a lot out of this, but I also approached this text for kind of spiritual study and reflection. I'm not sure how much you would get out of it if you approached it merely as a sort of ethical or philosophical text, because it is, again, sort of a Jewish religious text. And so, I don't know, even if you read like a kind of copy like this with the commentary, I don't know how much you would get out of it. I'd be kind of curious though, like if somebody who's not Jewish, and or maybe you are Jewish but you don't want to read this for spiritual reflection or whatever, I'm kind of curious, like, how would you respond to this if you read this book? I don't know. So, you know, again, I personally feel like I got a lot out of this book, but I don't know that it's going to be for everybody, because I was approaching it with certain motivations in mind, right? That like aren't necessarily going to be your motivations for approaching it. So yeah, it was good, and I've already talked more at length about Pirkei Avot in my maybe Midrash wrap up, so I'm not going to belabor that here, but I also finished this week. I also finished a Booktube Prize book this week, which is No Son of Silencing by Lacy Crawford. Now, I cannot tell you my thoughts about this right now. I have already recorded my thoughts about this book elsewhere in a vlog that will go up once the finals round is underway at the beginning of August. So no more about that, but I finished this too. So there you go, 3 books that I am at a loss to rate this week. Okay, another book I finished this week was The 30 Names of Night by Zeyn Joukhadar. I read this as an ebook, so I don't have it here to hold up and show you. This I ended up giving 3 stars. This was a book that I read both for Pride Month, because it's about a trans character, but also I read it for my own personal Arab American literature project, because Zeyn Joukhadar is a Syrian American. So I gave this book 3 stars. I think it's a book that you would like if you appreciate atmospheric writing and sort of magical, realist-like, dream-like sort of narratives. For me, I felt like I wanted more out of the plot of this book. And I also felt like there were 2 alternating narrators in this book, and I wanted them to be more clearly distinguished from one another, because I kept, like at points I kept having to go back and be like, wait, whose section am I in again? Because it just felt like there wasn't necessarily enough distinction between the 2, even though there were only 2. So one narrative is told from a character who eventually comes out as a trans man, And then the other narrative is told from the perspective of Lacy, who was an artist who had lived, I think she's still alive, but, you know, her narrative is told journal style, and it's from many years before the main narrator is telling their story. So at some point, of course, the two narratives converge, and you see sort of how that unfolds. But yeah, I kind of wanted more out of the plot. I feel like it didn't really go anywhere for a while, and I also feel like there was just a lot of stuff that seemed unusual, and I'm not sure if that's because of the magical realist stuff, but like, everybody in this book is obsessed with birds, and I'm just like, how likely is it that you're just surrounded by a bunch of people who are obsessed with birds? I don't think it's that likely, personally, unless it's set in like I don't know, some kind of bird society or whatever. But so yeah, I think, again, if you like quote-unquote atmospheric writing, you would probably get on with this book more than I did. I am glad that I read it, though. So yeah, 3 stars. And then the last book I finished this week was Daniel Silva's The Defector. This is the 9th book in the Gabriel Allon series. This is the other book that I both started and finished this week, along with Marc's book. So, go me. So I really enjoyed this book. The stakes were very high, and because the stakes were very high, I was like on the edge of my seat for most of the book. And as with all of Daniel Silva's books, it's a spy thriller novel, and it's very plotty and fast-paced, and it's a page-turner. But again, for me, because the stakes were so high for the main character, it was even more of a page turner than it normally would be. And I feel like some of my complaints with Silva's previous books in the series, like that he relies too much on a deus ex machina that swoops in to save Gabriel at the end, I felt like I didn't have that problem with this book. Some other criticisms I've had of Silva in the past is that he has like too many balls in the air. Again, I didn't feel like that was the case with this book, so this for me has been the best book that I've read in this series since the 3rd book, which was The Confessor, which I gave 4 stars, and I also gave The Defector 4 stars. So if you like fast-paced spy thriller novels, I would recommend the series. I can't necessarily recommend The Defector as like a standalone book if you haven't already read some other books in the series, though, because even though Silva always tries to kind of explain, you know, some background to catch you up if you are just reading it as a standalone book, I think it's more useful to have read the previous books in the series. So yeah, finished that as well. So yeah, 5 books that I finished this week. Go me. So as for what I'm currently reading, since I finished one of my Booktube Prize books, I picked up another one, the address book, What Street Addresses Reveal About Identity, Race, Wealth, and Power by Deirdre. And again, because this is for the Booktube Prize, I cannot tell you any of my thoughts about it. I can tell you that I am about 150 pages of the way through this, so I'm sure I will finish this up, hopefully by the time I do my next Friday Reads video. But again, I will record my thoughts about it elsewhere to go up in a vlog after the finals round is underway. I am also still reading Ralph Waldo Emerson's Essential Writings with Karen Evans. And then lastly, I recently started my other book that I wanted to read for Pride Month, which I'm reading this as an ebook, so I don't have it to hold up and show you. But it is Randall Kenan's If I Had Two Wings, which is a collection of 10 short stories. I have read 2 of the stories so far, and so I kind of hope that I like some of the other ones better as we go along. So we'll see. I liked the second one better than the first one, but again, because I've only read 2, I feel like I don't have a ton of information to go off of right now, but so far, meh. So that's everything. That's everything I finished this week or I'm currently reading. If you have thoughts about any of these books, I would love to hear that. Please feel free to let me know down in the comments below. Thank you for watching this. I hope everyone is staying healthy and well. I hope you're doing good reading whatever you're reading. And until next time, would it kill you to call you mama?